Today I'm going to share with you better way to control water and paint when you paint with watercolors. So basically we're going to paint 3 different petals, I should say 9 in a way, but each petal is going to be painted 3 different ways. So the first one we're going to paint with a very small amount of paint mixed in with water. So I'm going to call this ratio water-like. And then the second version is going to be more paint mixed in with water, but still going to be watered down, but this time more paint, so I will call it milk-like. And then the third version is going to have the most paint, so I call it half and half-like, just like your creamer for coffee. So basically you want to have way more pigment when you grab on with your brush, and we're going to dilute all that paint in separate wells. So we're going to have that water-like ratio, the milk-like ratio, and then half and half. I'm not going to pre-mix that water with paint on the side. I'm going to just grab the paint as I paint. All my sketches are always available for download on Patreon, and please feel free to download these and you can sketch them as well. You can trace them. So these are my swatches, colors that I chose. So I wanted to paint a petal with 2 colors, and then I wanted to paint with 3 colors. So it just depends how you want to do it, but don't worry about matching the same colors. Just you're learning here more about like how much paint and water to use when you paint wet on wet. So the first flowers we're going to paint with these 2 colors. I chose QUIN.RED, Red, and yellow ochre, but feel free to use a yellow, regular yellow color, or another red, or even ochre color, whichever color you would like to use. So we're going to prepare our color mixes. This is a round 4 Heritage Series brush by Princeton, a round brush. So any round brush is fine, size 4 or 2. So I'm adding some water onto my wells, 2 different wells, and then I'm pre-mixing first yellow ochre and then QUIN.RED. So again, this is going to be very watered down, so you really want to have not that much paint mixed in with your water. So I call it water-like because it's really watered down. It's just like water but with a color basically. So this is going to be our color mix, so I'm not going to grab paint from anywhere else. And then we're going to create milk-like consistency now, right, of the watercolor ratio with water. So this time the water is going to be mixed with a little more paint, so more pigment. So you just have to feel it out. I call it milk-like because when you look at milk, it's kind of like, you know, it's colored, it's milky-like, it's more opaque. So that's what you kind of want. So way more paint than in the first version, just so you see the difference. So you want to see that difference, because our third version, which is the half and half like, is going to be definitely more like half and half, almost like half, so 50-50 ratio with the water and paint. So I'm not pre-mixing that third version with water. I'm just going to grab the paint as I go. I just need a little more paint on my palette just to make sure I have enough to play with once I start painting that third petal. So water-like, milk-like, and then this is going to be half and half-like. So first thing, I'm going to pre-wet the petal. So we're going to pre-wet every single petal here because every single one we're going to paint wet on wet. That's the biggest struggle that I see with my students, is controlling that paint and water, especially when the surface is already wet. So I fast forwarded it when I was pre-wetting it, but make sure it's really wet. And then this is the water-like ratio of that paint and water. So the paint is really diluted with water. Now when you dip your brush, for example, in water and you're going to grab that paint to start painting, please wipe it first on a towel or paper towel, that brush, so you don't carry more water than we already have all this water in your well that you need. So let's remember that we are already painting on a wet surface and your color is already diluted with water. So there is no need to bring double amount of water onto your paper. So as you see, I keep wiping my brush first on a towel before I reach for that paint. And then I'm adding another color, which is the yellow ochre, and I just play around with it. So I can still play with it. So everything is still controllable because I don't have that crazy amount of water, because I keep wiping my brush on a towel before I go for that paint. This is the second version. Second version is milk-like. So again, pre-wetting this petal. So take your time, don't rush here. You can pause the video and take your time to pre-wet the petal. And then we're going for that second well, which has that mix of QUIN.RED, but there's less water this time. So this is our little thicker mix of paint, but not really. It's still milk-like, so it's still diluted with water pretty well. It's just it has more color now, so it's more rich. So this petal will dry more vibrant because I have more pigment here mixed in with water, so there's less water this time. So you can still play with it. You can play with it, and I'm using the tip of my brush to distribute the paint in a way. So I play with what I have, but again, I wiped my brush first on a towel. So I did my brush in water and I rinsed it, and then I wiped it first on a towel, and then I went for my painting. And that's what I'm doing again. And because I'm grabbing yellow ochre now, and I'm adding yellow ochre on the bottom of that petal, and I'm playing with what I have. So my brush doesn't have that much water, and that's why I can paint without like bringing more water in, and everything just disperses so fast. It will dry really pretty. The third version is half and half. I call it half and half. So it's like the creamer for your coffee. That's what I'm trying to refer to. So when you see that half and half, it's a little thicker, right? It's thicker than milk. And that's what I want you to understand. And this is when I am mixing now the paint with that water. I don't have that much water in there, and it's very like creamy, like almost. So as you see on my finger, like there's really not that much water. There is water. It always has to be water because you're painting with watercolors. So whenever you paint with watercolors, you do need water. Otherwise, you're just staining your paper and it doesn't look pretty. But I go along the edges and I'm just distributing that paint. And basically how I grab the paint is usually with the fullness of that hair of that brush. And then for the most part, I use the tip of the brush just like if I was painting with a pencil, for example, drawing with a pencil. So you want to use the tip of the brush to have more control. And then I'm grabbing some of the yellow ochre with the tip of that brush. As you see, like the paint is not moving that much. That's because I don't have that much water mixed in with my paint. Another reason, of course, is that I am painting with Holbein, and Holbein company does not add oxycolor to their paint. So the paints don't like disperse as fast and as much. But it's still watercolors, they're still transparent. It's just easier to control them overall. But you will still achieve this kind of control if you don't have that much water mixed in with your paint. And that's what we're going for here. So this third version of the petal will be much more vibrant than the middle one. Even the middle one is pretty vibrant already, right? But that's because we were using a little more water than in the first version. But this is exactly how it's going to look like when you use more paint. So the left side shows all the paler washes, and the middle one is a little more paint, milk-like, and then the right side is half and half.